You know, I want to have friends like this, where like someone just appears in a shower of sparks in my living room, and I'm like, oh, what are you guys up to now?
Hold hands and close your eyes. It's midnight, and you're listening to the Ghost Story Guys.
Welcome to the Ghost Story Guys. I'm Brennan Storr.
I'm Paul Bestall.
And this is the show where we talk about spooks, specters, and all the other things watching us from the shadows beyond the campfire. Some conversations only make sense after the sun has set, and this is most definitely one. Thanks for tuning in. This is episode number 246, and we're coming to you from that tiny mountain cabin you dream about, but can never quite reach. Paul Bestall, my friend, you are back from the brink of death, or at least laryngitis. How are you doing?
I'm all right. I think that's 100 games in 6 weeks. Took it out of me.
I think it was Liam in the Discord said, I'm sure that watching 100 games of football while working a full-time job and having a weekly podcast plus another weekly podcast plus planning ahead for a wedding, I'm sure none of that had any bearing on him getting sick.
No, not at all. Absolutely not. No, it was a real shock. I only got drunk 3 times as well. It's probably the soberest World Cup I've done through choice.
That was your mistake right there.
I think it was.
Yeah. You get hammered enough, you can keep all of this at a distance.
Or maybe it was laughing at Argentina when they lost to Spain. Maybe that's what finished me off. Just laughing and laughing and laughing.
I'm just picturing a Killing Joke type scenario.
Yeah, it was. Like Max Headroom.
Well, it is good to have you back. And I'm stoked to get into today's show, because today we've got, I think it's going to be a really fun one. We've got a raft of stories from a resource I managed to track down at Brown and Dixon Books in London, Ontario, just before I moved. And we have a number of stories this week from Fate magazine, specifically the April 1956 edition. And I love going through these old resources, Paul, because you sometimes find stuff that just hasn't really made the jump to digital. You know, stories that are just too weird or too obscure in some cases. Yes.
I think there's a lot of this. I know, obviously, Fate, the legendary magazine, has recently changed ownership, and they've started, as part of that, doing some kind of archive sharing on social media, which obviously a lot of it has never been digitized. So there's some really weird stuff.
Fantastic.
Like they did an article the other day about why did people who worked in anomalous phenomena in the 60s have massive letterheads. So you've got all these letters from people like Gray Barker and John Keel, and it's just massive letterheads everywhere. It was like the thing. So it's all these things that have been like squirreled away, or really weird magazines from the 50s with, you know, the kind of stuff that would sell those, what was he called? Charles Atlas?
Yeah.
Weightlifter, those kinds of ads, and sea monkeys and stuff, you know?
Well, funny you mention, I've got 2 right here. At least one of which I think would be outlawed in modern day. Well, actually, it'd be sold on Twitter. But that one is called Hypnosis Unawares. Learn to hypnotize others while they sleep. You can easily with my new copyrighted home study course. Jealously guarded professional secrets of, quote, natural sleep hypnosis. Cases, examples, exciting instructions. Complete self-study course cautiously offered to adults only. $5. Wade Hampton, PhD. Los Angeles, shocking. I think we should dispatch old-timey police to Mr. Hampton's apartment, because I think that man is an offender of some description.
Yes, it's like the old X-ray specs adverts that would guarantee you could see through clothing, and basically, without telling you what you were going to use it for, was kind of indicating, yes, you'll be following women around. Ironically, a bit like the new Meta Ray-Bans. There
is a lot of overlap. Yeah, if we still had paper magazines, those sons of bitches would be in ads right at the back. Are you a scumbag? Meta Ray-Bans.
Yeah, I saw some for sale in a shop the other day. I thought, yeah, 500 quid, what a bargain.
That's a lot of money to spend to let everyone know you're a pervert.
It is, regardless of their adverts trying to make it look cool.
Yeah. It's the same thing as in the back of these magazines. They've just put a pretty sheen on it. I actually met a guy I was having a great conversation with him. And then he said, yeah, I've got these, and he pulls out the Meta Ray-Bans, and I thought, oh, Christ, well, I'm going now. He said, I use them for art tutorials. Oh, okay. Can I see one? Do you have any on your social media? Oh, I didn't end up doing it. No shit. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, it's like that kid who's always swimming underwater in the public swimming baths. Yeah, we know what you're doing, mate.
Yeah.
We know why you've got goggles on, you dirty bugger.
Not testing your lung capacity either, you little bastard.
You will be in a minute when I hold your head under.
Well, before we share, before we get to the stories or even thank our patrons, there is one more ad I want to share here. You can be a dowser with the new radiesthetic, the real word we swear, detector, the Pasquini amplifying pendulum. Invented by Elio Pasquini in 1952, this new pendulum is so simple and so sensitive that beginners get results much earlier than usual. It gives clear, amplified indications of water, minerals, etc. Get yours today for only $7.50. It uses, shockingly, they don't tell you what it's composed of. But it is magic, we swear. We swear. This is not also for perverts. I assume it is. I don't know how yet, but I'll figure it out. But before I put on my thinking cap, we're going to thank our patrons.
This one's for the patrons.
Patrons, we couldn't do what we do, which is, of course, attribute nefarious motives to old-timey magazine advertisements without you. So thank you. Thank you, thank you. For real, guys. Every single person who downloads the Ghost Story Guys, you help make us who we are. But people who can afford to support us financially are the real MVPs. Without you, none of this happens. So we want to thank every single one of you. And while we'd like to thank every single one of you by name, right now, we're going to thank our latest subscribers. They are
HSSH,
Christy DePoli,
Lee Mills,
Anne,
Shannon Fitch,
and Karen. Thank you all from the bottom of our terrible hearts. And if you too would like to help support what we do, get access to bonus conversations between myself and Paul, episodes of shows like Host Adventures, our monthly live stream, our Ghost Force shoutouts, and so much more, click the link in the show notes, head to patreon.com/ghoststoryguys, or you can become a Cabinista on Apple Podcasts or support us on YouTube. Again, get access to early ad-free release, bonus shows, extra conversations, monthly live streams, and so much more by clicking the link in the show notes, heading to patreon.com/ghoststoryguys, becoming a Cabinista on Apple Podcasts, or signing up on YouTube. All right, Paul, are you ready to head back into the past, where we will try not to step on any butterflies, lest we end up with a despotic madman running the... Oh, I know what happened.
Yeah, who's been fucking about with the time machines?
Yeah, okay. So we're going to go back in time and find the son of a bitch who stepped on the butterfly. And you can all come with us. We'll be right back. Our first story is one near and dear to my heart for reasons which will become very obvious. And this is well, a quasi. It's not quite a ghost story, but I suppose it is weird and slightly paranormal. It is Nikola Tesla's Missing Pigeon by Fred Korotke. Mm-hmm. So the story of this goes: for almost 30 years, Nikola Tesla fed the pigeons in Herald Square, Bryant Park, the plaza of the Public Library at 42nd Street, and at St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York. He blew a low whistle, usually after midnight, and the birds gathered from all over. Some perched on his head, some on his shoulders and arms, while others gathered on the ground before him. A few ate seeds out of his hands. Tesla had a phobia against germs. Still, he admitted the parasite-laden pigeons to fly all about him. He avoided shaking hands. He washed frequently. He sprayed messenger boys with antiseptic before accepting packages from them. He insisted that no one else should use his table in the hotel dining room. He insisted on a fresh tablecloth for every meal, demanded that a stack of 24 white napkins be placed on the table, and used a separate napkin to clean every dish, fork, spoon, and knife, tossing the napkins on the floor after using them. Silverware and dishes had to be sterilized in the kitchen, and only the head waiter could serve him. Sight of a fly at his table meant the meal must start over from the beginning. Fear of germs controlled his every action, but he handed out $5 and $10 tips at the end of each meal, so his behavior was tolerated. Because he feared germs, he wore only white underwear, which he discarded after one day's wear. Jesus. Handkerchiefs and detachable shirt collars never went to the laundry either. After one day's use, he threw them away. Pigeons, however, were different. Tesla was willing to overlook lice, psittacosis, and tubercular birds because he was searching for the missing pigeon. Nikola Tesla invented neon and fluorescent lighting, robot machines, power transmission, radio control, guided missiles, and the basic requirements for electric clocks. He predicted radio and television, and his Tesla coil is in all broadcasting antenna and in every automobile ignition system. He discovered the heating effect of shortwave currents on the human body and suggested their use in treating diseases. His greatest invention was the rotating magnetic field, which made possible the alternating current induction motor. Before his time, transmission of electricity was expensive and only possible for a distance of a mile or a mile and a half. Tesla's alternating current made possible transmission of power at reasonable economical cost over great distances. It ushered in the age of electricity. Though Tesla had intense psychic power, boy, I want to know what their source is for that claim, he denied it at every opportunity. He was a precocious child, and he also had two wonderful gifts. First, his memory was amazing. He could look into a book or newspaper, get a complete mental picture of its contents, and several years later he could repeat, almost word for word, everything that was printed in the book or newspaper. His second gift was visualization. Before starting an invention, he visualized every bit of it as a unit, down to the finest detail. Then he built his machine without any other blueprint. While feeding pigeons, Tesla noticed and befriended a pure white bird with light gray tips on her wings. No matter where he went, this pigeon would find him. If he wanted her, he had only to think about her, and she would show up. He felt that he could always accomplish anything he began, no matter how ambitious a scheme, so long as this pigeon lived. He believed that his life work would end when this pigeon died, unless it was reincarnated. However, the word reincarnated was forbidden to him, since he said he believed the soul dies with the body, so he never expressed himself in this regard, although his thinking on the subject became known. Again, I would love to know where and how, but that's neither here nor there, I suppose. Wherever he lived in various hotels, he left an open window so pigeons could enter and leave. Nests and birdseed were provided for breeding pigeons. Numerous times he was asked to move from hotels because of the pigeons. Boy, I'm feeling pretty called out here, Paul. He told a friend that the white pigeon was the joy of his life. Once, when she came to his room and was ill, he stayed beside her for days. One night, as he lay in bed in the dark, a bird flew through the open window and landed on his desk. Feeling that she wanted him and wished to tell him something important, Tesla got up and went to her. She was dying. As the realization came to Tesla, he said he saw a brilliant light, blinding and powerful, coming from the pigeon's eyes. He claimed this dazzling light was very real and more intense than any he had ever produced in his laboratory. Much of his happiness went out of Tesla's life with the bird's death. He confided to a friend that he continued to feed pigeons because, after all, he said, who can tell? When the story about the light from the pigeon's eyes was first published, some critics believed it was a figment of Tesla's imagination. I would hope it was more than a few. A few years before his death, Tesla had suffered severe injury in a traffic accident but had refused medical care. Some of his acquaintances believed he became a mixed-up, incoherent genius as a result of the accident. They discounted the story of the pigeon. But recently, a former associate was asked to prepare material about Tesla for publication. While he was working on it, a pigeon came to his window and ejected powerful, blinding rays of brilliant light from its eyes. The associate's thinking on Tesla's story of light from the pigeon's eyes changed abruptly. This does not solve the riddle, of course. Was Tesla's pigeon reborn? Or did Tesla's spirit return to tell his associate that his search for the missing pigeon had ended in heaven? I don't know about you, Paul. Nothing about this says heaven to me.
No, I'm not getting those vibes either.
No, I love that he took care of the pigeons. I think that's great. As a fellow autist who has had a balcony full of pigeons that he just could not bring himself to shoo away, I get it. But I don't know. A pigeon with Cyclops powers does not seem like something that was, did he who made the lamb make thee, right? Like, this is not making sense to me.
With so many people prescribing so many alleged things about Tesla, since his death, this is probably one of the most normal things I think people have said.
Yeah, okay,
over
that's
the years, really. If I hear somebody blaming for Tunguska again, I'll beat them to death with a rolled up magazine, I think.
Oh, right, because now with Tunguska, they claimed that it was one of his energy weapons or something that did this?
Yeah, some people have claimed, it's the infamous death ray.
Right, the death ray that never has manifested in any capacity whatsoever.
No.
Yeah, my death ray lives in Canada. You wouldn't know her.
It's in that warehouse next to the Ark of the Covenant.
and the real Snyder cut of Justice League.
The cut of Supergirl people want to watch.
From what I've read about the process of that film, there was no cut that anyone wanted to watch. Both ones they tested did not test very well. Man, I wanted to like that movie.
Well, I'm sure it's better than some of the things I've managed to see this year. So,
yeah, what was it you were telling me off air? You watched what was it? It was something spectacularly shit.
The Mummy.
Oh, yeah, right, Lee Cronin's The Mummy. Yes, of course.
Lee Cronin's The Mummy. I absolutely hate it. As I said to you earlier, I didn't think I would see a film worse than The Bride this year, but by heck, that it's such a horrible, spiteful, stupid film that it bears no resemblance. It's basically, let's do The Exorcist with sand.
Yeah, no, that's about it. As I said, when I was telling when we were texting about it, the only thing I liked about that film really was the plot thread with the Egyptian detective.
Yeah,
because she was quite brilliant, and I thought, I would actually watch a whole movie about her. And funny enough, I think there's a film about a female detective working on a case that just came out, unidentified. That's from, I want to say, somewhere in the Middle East. That sounds like it could be interesting. So maybe that'll be the movie we never got with whatever the fuck happened with The Mummy.
There's just lots of, why is an Egyptian demon annoyed by Catholicism? I mean, what? And why is she Spanish and clearly nobody else in the film is? Her daughter doesn't seem to be Spanish. The fuck is going on here?
The one answer that's not explained in the film is they shot in Spain. That is the sole explanation.
But there's just so many stupid scenes, like the toenail cutting scene. Because the thing about great horror films is often it's the realization of horrifying things in a real life situation. Right? And then you start thinking, fucking hell, this is weird. At no point from this girl reappearing does anybody think, what the fuck is going on here? Right? Because there's nothing normal about this. Right? She looks 900 for a start. Right? And the other thing is, none of the kids look like the parents. What? What's happening here? Because by the end of it, she looks like somebody else's child. She's blonde hair, blue eyes. Nobody's blonde haired and blue eyed in it. You're like, what's going on? Whose kid's that? I don't even think it's the right kid. Who is
the 10-foot tall milkman named Olaf.
But like the toenail, and you're just like, right, if I'm cutting somebody's toenail, right, and I got to pull it, and half the leg skin comes flying off, I don't go, oh no, that's a bit weird. I go, what the fuck is going on? Who the fuck can we get in touch with? No, this seems fine. Fuck off. No, just, I didn't, I'll tell you what, I apologise to Maggie Gyllenhaal, because I didn't think I'd see a film worse than The Bride, and I have. At least The Bride was trying to be different, and it didn't work for me at all. But there's more originality in The Bride, despite it obviously being, a zombie version of Bonnie and Clyde, essentially. They still try to do more. This is just a spiteful, generic, cliched, poorly plotted horror film that does not deserve to be considered. And I will say this now, I didn't think anything would be... would make the Tom Cruise version better, but this has. I would rather watch the Tom Cruise version again than ever see Lee Cronin's The Mummy again. Awful film.
No argument here, my friend. We are in accord on this one. Going back to the pigeon thing, have you heard any more about this in recent years? Like, has there been any additional information uncovered about this? Because this is truly bizarre.
I think it's one of those stories that people I don't think people realise how old the story is. I think it's one of those that people think it's just something that's appeared in the last 20, 25 years.
Right.
But, he was a very strange person. Like you say, he was quite obviously on the spectrum, because I do know somebody who has a very similar thing with underwear, not to that extreme, but they get rid of it every 3 to 6 months.
Oh, okay.
Which in the modern era is quite weird. Always reminds me, last year I was walking around a shop and I saw somebody wearing a pair of Calvin Kleins, and they were just ripped because they would got them pulled out the top of the trousers, because we all need to see your shitty pants. And they were all ripped to pieces. They were like, literally, I won't wear them to be doing gardening. Never mind doing shopping, right? Like big holes in them and stuff, like they've been used in a bank robbery as a mask. It was like, what? Fucking hell, how desperate are you to have a designer label boxer shorts that you would wear them? Essentially, they were so holy, they looked like the bags you get oranges in. There's that many holes in them. And I just thought, what the fuck? You throw them away, man. So, yeah. I mean, obviously, no wonder he was skint if he's doing this every day, because
It does explain a few things. He's about as good with money as I am.
Yeah, can't come out tonight, lads. I've just bought some new kecks.
Also, I've had to pay off the bellboys so they don't murder me for making them bring me stacks of napkins.
They mess with me again, I'll turn on the death ray.
I'll send my pigeons after them. That's a great thing about, this is my plan. After fostering all those pigeons in my balcony for a year and a half, I'm like, if I ever need them, I'm just going to I got to hand a bunch of birdseed in my pocket. I'm going to toss it on the person, and I just know they're going to be like that scene in Batman Begins.
I suppose birds and their navigation would be something that Tesla would have been incredibly fascinated with, because I think it's one of those things about the world that everybody just takes for granted.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, how do birds navigate? Like, travel continents. They know exactly where they're going, and they know exactly where they're going to go back to. It doesn't matter what the weather's like. They just can get there. And we just go, birds. What? What do you mean?
Look at them go.
Look, he's flown 7,000 miles. You're like, what? He's done what? And I think it's one of those things we just don't really appreciate just how incredible that is.
I mean, I think if we want to just get a sense of why most people don't think about this, I think we can look at the fact that one of our wealthiest men was trying to convince everyone that introspection was a modern invention. Mark Andreessen was like, thinking about stuff, that's a pretty new thing. Why don't you have the computer? He actually said introspection is a modern conceit. And no one hit him over the head like the Humpty Dumpty looking motherfucker that he is.
Well, usually tech bros have a hot take that's always shit.
I think they're all just hot takes that are shit. I don't think I've found one that has anything to say worth hearing.
No. I don't know anything about philosophy.
Bully the shit out of these nerds. This, look, I'm not a big fan of this. I was, but some guys just need to be hit a little bit.
Yeah, it's like there's an academic here who's written a scathing review of the Odyssey. And I think she's about to understand what the word viral means.
Oh, is that Emily Wilson?
Yeah.
I saw that. Yeah, she did that translation that came out a couple of years ago.
Yep.
Oh man, look, I respect your right to have an opinion, but there's such a thing as too much smoke. It's the top grossing film, and even before it made a bunch of money, it was a subject of controversy because of all the chuds who have an issue with, Lupita Nyong'o being cast as Helen of Troy.
Yeah. Are they the same people who think Jesus is white?
Coincidentally, yes.
Peter, Paul, and Mark, those very well-known Middle Eastern names.
Well, don't forget trying to reckon the idea that the Odyssey is historical while also Jesus lived. I feel like was there like a Greco-Roman wrestling match between Zeus and Jesus? Because I'll watch it, is what I'm saying. Put that on the White House lawn. I will go see that.
Next up is Mind Over Space, The Mystery of Teleportation by the legendary Nandor Fodor and the Flight of Mrs. Guppy. On June the 23rd, 1871, at 61 Lamb's Conduit Street, High Holborn, London, one of the most remarkable instances of human transportation was placed on record. The event, as claimed, created considerable excitement and provided entertainment for editorial writers of the daily press. The House of Mystery, as it became known, was besieged by crowds of the curious. There was a séance room on the second floor and sleeping quarters on the third. The tenants were Messrs. Hearn and Williams, two professional mediums in partnership since the early part of the year. They were fairly new arrivals on the spiritualistic horizon. Frank Hearn had started his séances in January 1869, giving clairvoyant descriptions of the spirits surrounding the callers and telling them of their aura. Soon noisier demonstrations, the so-called physical phenomena, were claimed, and these appeared to grow in power when Charles Williams participated. It appears that Williams alone was not capable of anything spectacular. In fact, the Reverend William Staton Moses, Master of University College, London, one of the most remarkable private school mediums of the day, in whose circles Williams had been seen as a guest, doubted the genuineness of his power. But others were highly enthusiastic. At any rate, the partnership flourished and reached its climax with the celebrated case of Mrs. Guppy's transportation in Dishabille over a distance of 3 miles. Here is the signed statement in the Spiritualist, June the 15th, 1871, that tells the story. On Saturday evening, June the 3rd, at 61 Lamb's Conduit Street, High Holborn, London, a séance was held in the rooms of Messrs. Hearn and Williams, mediums. Before the séance began, the doors communicating with the passage outside were locked. The proceedings began at the request of the mediums with a prayer. Then spirit lights like small stars were seen moving about, after which a conversation between the spirits of John King and Katie King were heard. John said, "Katie, you can't do it." And Katie replied, "I will. I tell you I will." John said, "I tell you, you can't." She, goodness me, I mean, psychic mediums in the 1870s were this is a bit full on, isn't it? Psychic domestics.
I don't know, man. I've been to paranormal group meetings. This is not that unexpected. Well, Carol is a bitch who is not nearly as sensitive as she thinks she is. Oh, well, I'm starting my own psychic investigation group.
So Katie replied, once again, "I will." Mr. Harrison then said, "Can you bring Mrs. Guppy?" There was no reply, but a member of the circle urged that the attempt should not be made. Within 3 minutes after Katie had said, "I will," a single heavy sound was heard for an instant on the centre of the table. Mr. Edwards put out his hand and said, "There is a dress here." A light was Careful where he put his hand, I think. A light was instantly struck, and Mrs. Guppy was found standing motionless on the centre of the table, trembling all over. She had a pen and an account book in her hands. Her right hand, with the pen in it, was over her eyes. She was spoken to by those present, but did not seem to hear. The light was then placed in another room, and the door was closed for an instant. John King then said, "She'll be all right presently." After the lapse of around 4 minutes after her arrival, she moved for the first time and began to cry. The time of her arrival was 10 minutes past 8. Mrs. Edmonston, Mr. Edwards, and Mr. Harrison went at once to one of the doors, and found it still locked. The other door could not be opened during the séance because the back of the chair of one of the sitters was against it. There was no cupboard, article, or furniture, or anything else in the rooms in which it was possible for anybody to conceal themselves, and if there had been, we, the undersigned witnesses, are all certain that by no natural means could Mrs. Guppy have placed herself instantaneously on the centre of a table around which we were all sitting, shoulder to shoulder. Mrs. Guppy said that the last thing she remembered before she found herself on the table was that she was sitting at home at Highbury, talking to Miss Nayland and entering some household accounts in her book. The ink in the pen was wet when she arrived in our midst. The last word in the writing of the book was incomplete and was wet and smeared. She complained that she was not dressed in visiting costume and had no shoes on, as she had been sitting at the fire without them. As she stated this to Mr. Morris and Mr. and Mrs. Edwards, a pair of slippers dropped on the floor from above, one of them grazing Mr. Morris's head. This was after the séance and in the light. We all went into the dark room for a few minutes afterwards, and 4 flower pots with flowers in them, which Miss Guppy declared to be from her home, had been placed on the table at once. After tea, a second séance was held. Within a single minute or two after the light was put out, there was a cry for a light, and Mr. Hearn was seen by 4 persons falling from above onto his chair. There were bundles of clothes belonging to Mr. Guppy, Mrs. Guppy, and Miss Nayland on the table, and Mr. Hearn declared he had just seen Miss Nayland in Mrs. Guppy's house.
Paul, this is just an excuse for why they got caught having an orgy. You know, somewhere there's a cauldron with a bunch of keys in it. Yeah, nice try, guys.
Mr. Hearn declared he'd just seen Miss Nayland in Mrs. Guppy's house, and that she had pushed the clothes into his arms and told him, "Go to the devil." The light was again put out, and when it was struck once more, Mr. Williams was now missing. He was found in the next room, lying in an insensible state on some clothes belonging to Mr. Guppy. He said on awakening that he had been to Mr. Guppy's house and saw Miss Nayland, who was sitting at a table and seemed to be praying. And then we have a list of all the people who claimed that this really happened. John King is the most romantic character of the spiritualistic history. According to his own claim, he was on Earth, Henry Owen Morgan, the famous buccaneer, knighted by Charles II and appointed governor of Jamaica. This is the infamous Captain Morgan, as in the rum, by the way.
Oh, no kidding. I'm sure the Jamaicans were super thrilled about this.
Well, it is something that keeps cropping up about why are we still sort of celebrating this absolute shithead as some kind of buccaneer, when really he was just a totalitarian murderer who enslaved whole populations. Anyway, he was the spiritus rector behind the violent type of physical phenomena of a succession of mediums from the earliest days of spiritualism. It was apparently a mark of distinction to acquire him as a guide. Katie King, who claimed to be his daughter, was an almost equally romantic character whose fame was founded on the seances of Florence Cook, which convinced Sir William Crookes of the reality of psychic phenomena. But in the Hearn and Williams seances, there is some doubt as to Katie's identity as the daughter of John King, as she once described us. Oh, Christ almighty.
Yeah, we're not going to say that.
Yeah, as she once described herself as a person of black heritage. As to the participants of the séance, the spiritualists say Mr. Morris is a Manchester merchant of high standing, and his sincerity in bearing testimony to these facts is attested by the editor of the Echo, and as will be seen further, that Mr. Edwards is a B.A. at Cambridge University. He is a scientific man, and a few weeks ago he read a paper before the Society of Arts. Mrs. Edmonston is the wife of Mr. Edmondson, principal of the well-known Indian rubber establishment at Charing Cross, and Mr. Harrison is a writer for scientific and other newspapers. The foregoing document was drawn up hurriedly, as several of those present had to leave early to catch trains or keep engagements, so we will now go a little more into the details.
Just going to jump in here real quick. I love how they're trying to convince us of the legitimacy of this by telling us how hurriedly it was all done.
Yeah.
You know, like, this is totes for real, because everyone involved, they had to get the fuck out of there. So they were really on top of their game. Thanks, guys. Seems legit to me.
Oh, very much so. The séance was held in a small room, around 12 foot by 10 foot 4 inches, and it contained no furniture but the table and the chairs occupied by the sitters. The table was of oval form, the 2 diameters being 5 foot and 4 foot respectively. The sitters and the table so nearly filled the room that there were no walking around 3 sides of the room without disturbing the rest of those present, and asking them to shift their seats. The 4th side of the room consisted of large folding doors which were closed and were communicated with the drawing room. The opening of the small door of the séance room would have let in much light from the passage. There was no stool or anything in the room but the chairs of the sitters, which would have afforded a footing to anybody trying to jump on the table. There were about 2 feet of space between the folding doors and the nearest sitter, which was Mr. Hearn. Mr. Williams, the other medium, sat at the opposite end. Mr. Hearn, at the other end of the longest diameter of the oval table, he was sealed in, so to speak, at the furthest end of the room, by the table and the sitters. At the time of the solitary heavy thud upon the table caused by the arrival of Mrs. Guppy, the members of the circle were sitting very quietly. Mr. Hearn was talking, and his hands were held by Mrs. Edmonston on one side and Mr. Harrison on the other. When a wax match was struck, Mrs. Guppy was seen standing like a dark statue on the centre of the table. The excitement, of course, was intense. The folding doors were closed. 2 of the witnesses noted the time, and 3 went to the door of the drawing-room and found it locked. As Miss Guppy continued to tremble in the same attitude and not to hear the words spoken to her, the candle which had been lit was removed for an instant, and John King said, "She will be all right presently." When she awoke, she had tears in her eyes and was greatly agitated. In the course of her statement about the removal from her room, she said she had been sitting by the fire with Miss Nayland, entering some things in her account book. Whilst writing a word, she suddenly became insensible. When she awoke in a dark place and heard voices around her, her first impression was that she was dead.
Yikes.
Then it flashed upon her that she had been carried to a dark circle, and she was afraid she might be among strangers. Finally, she recognised the voice of one of those present, and felt much relieved at once. She complained that she had no shoes or bonnet to go home in, and was not dressed for an evening visit. While she thus complained, a pair of slippers, belonging to Mr. Hearn, we believe, dropped on the head of one of the gentlemen to whom she was talking. A minute or 2 later, a bunch of keys dropped into her lap before the eyes of those around her. This was in the light. At the short dark sittings which followed, a bonnet was brought, and Mrs. Guppy recognised it as one that she had given to Mrs. Nayland a long time ago. Mrs. Guppy's boots and some articles of a dress of hers were also brought, along with Mr. Guppy's overcoat, waistcoat, and boots. 4 geraniums in pots about 4 inches high, standing in their saucers. One of the pots was upset, lying horizontally on the table. There were also articles of dress belonging to Messrs. Hearn and Williams brought from a bedroom upstairs. Although the articles of dress brought would have filled a clothes basket of moderate size. Once when a light was struck, Mr. Hearn was seen by 4 persons with his feet above the level of the edge of the table, his arms extended towards the ceiling, and his whole body falling with the velocity of almost a flash of light into his chair. He was moving in a curve from the top of the folding doors. He said he'd just seen Miss Nayland, who spoke to him as narrated in the preceding document. Also that he saw her in the billiard room of Mr. Guppy's house. But the billiard table had been removed from it, and elegant furniture substituted. He described the furniture, and Mrs. Guppy said that some of the things he described had only been bought and placed in the room that morning, and also that Mr. Guppy had removed the billiard table to another part of the house. Mr. Ernest Edwards suggested that if Mrs. Guppy would grant permission, it would be as well for some of the witnesses to return home with her, to hear at once the statements of those at Mr. Guppy's house. Mrs. Guppy strongly approved of the suggestion. Mr. and Mrs. Edwards, Mr. Hearn, and Mr. Harrison accordingly went home with Mrs. Guppy in 2 cabs. The cabs kept close to each other all the way, and all 5 persons entered Mr. Guppy's home together. Miss Nayland opened the door. She was followed by the whole party into the back parlour. No statement was made to her, but she was asked what had occurred. She said that she'd been downstairs with a newspaper on one side of the fire, whilst Mrs. Guppy sat at the other side of the fire, entering household accounts in a book. The door of the room was shut, and they were talking to each other, and on looking up from her paper after she'd made some remark, she was startled at seeing that Mrs. Guppy was not there. There was a kind of haze about the ceiling, as is sometimes the case after strong spiritual manifestations. She looked through the downstairs room as she told she could not find her, went and told Mr. Guppy, who was playing billiards with Mr. Hudson, a photographer who lived in the neighbourhood and who had been helping Mr. Guppy in some amateur photography. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Mr. Guppy said, no doubt the spirits had carried her off, but they would be sure to take care of her. Miss Nayland then searched the rest of the house, and afterwards she, Mr. Guppy, and Mr. Hudson sat down to supper. Oh, your wife's vanished and we're just going to have some tea. No problems.
You know, I want to have friends like this, where like someone just appears in a shower of sparks in my living room, and I'm like, oh, what are you guys up to now? It's like the end of Doctor Strange, end of Shang-Chi, where Wong just turns up in the restaurant in one of those flaming circles. Like, how great would that be? Hey, Bren, we're all going to Denny's. All right, let's go.
As they were sat at supper, spirit raps then came upon the table, and the spirits said that they had taken Mrs. Guppy to Mr. Hearn's seance. Mr. Guppy asked whether Mrs. Guppy was quite safe, and the spirit said yes. So shortly after supper he went to bed.
There's a lot of love in this relationship.
Miss Nayland was then asked, had anything else occurred? No. Had she seen Mr. Hearn previously that evening? No. Had she seen Mr. Williams? No. Where had she been most of the evening? She had spent much of her time in the front room, which used to be the billiard room, and had gone to sleep in there. What time was it then Mrs. Guppy was missed? But she did not know, but it could have been around 9 o'clock. Mrs. Guppy here remarked that the clock downstairs was half an hour fast. The whole party then went downstairs into the room from which Mrs. Guppy had been taken. Her shoes were seen on the carpet in front of the fire, near her chair, and the clock in the room was half an hour fast. Mr. Guppy has since informed us that Mrs. Guppy came once or twice to him and Mr. Hudson in the course of the evening, suggesting that they should have come and had supper. They replied that it was rather too early. He did not know what time it was they last saw her. We regret to state...
There is so much love in this house. There's so much love in this house, Paul. Jesus.
It's a good Victorian marriage, this. We regret to state that Mrs. Guppy was weak and unwell for several days after the occurrence of this manifestation of spirit power. 2 facts, which were not mentioned in the original account, caused considerable merriment in the public press. One was revealed by the medium and Daybreak on the 9th of June in 1871. An earlier account, according to the last word inscribed in the book in Mrs. Guppy's hands, was onions. The second was published in a letter by Henry Morris, one of the witnesses to the Echo. When it was suggested that Mrs. Guppy should have brought someone into the circle, explained, "Good gracious, I hope not. She's one of the biggest women in London." It gets better, this. The Echo published the letter on the 8th of June 1871, hence Henry Morris's account is the first that appeared in print. It is signed H.Y., but the writer's identity is easily to establish from the following editor's note. It is due to our readers and to our correspondent to say that we know he to be a Manchester merchant of high respectability. We should be very sorry to guarantee the authenticity of his narrative, but we have no right to question his disinterestedness or sincerity. High repeats that from joking remark about bringing Mrs. Guppy to the time that she was not on the table in 3 minutes did not elapse. Aware, perhaps, that in the first signed statement no mention is made of the locking of the folding door, but only of the doors communicating with the passage outside, he explicitly states that the room was examined before the séance began, and both the folding door and the other door leading to the séance room were locked. The possibility of her being concealed in the room is as absurd as the idea of her acting in collusion with the media. Oh, what a naive man this is. During the second part of the séance, which was held with the recovered Mrs. Guppy participating, heaps of flowers are strewn all over the table. Leaves from a horse chestnut tree with moisture on them as though just sprinkled by a shower of rain, and apparently just wrenched from the tree, were also brought in large quantities.
And upside-down pineapples were everywhere.
This additional statement is worth including as it indicates that Mrs. Guppy, a well-known medium in her own right, I think we're getting to the crux of this now, and famed for her flower reports, was in considerable power, which contradicts the statement of the editor in The Spiritualist that she was weak and unwell for several days. And I think if nothing can encapsulate the absolute bollocks of the Victorian spiritualist movement in one story, I will be hard-pressed to find one better than that. What a load of old tosh.
You tell me that Transporter Chief O'Brien didn't just zoop Mrs. Guppy over and drop her from the sky like a load of laundry?
I like how they lead it to right at the end. Oh, she's also a medium. I see. That's weird, isn't it? Did anybody have to pay to be at this séance, I wonder?
Well, I was thinking that. I guess Nandor Fodor was not allowed to title the article, "Can You Believe This Shit?"
Well, I mean, it's one of those things because transportation and flying and all this is obviously quite famous in a lot of respects. That some of the early ones, but probably the most famous member of this flying community was a gentleman called Daniel Douglas Home, if you've heard of him. And he was
Actually, it sounds familiar.
he was internationally renowned as a medium who could fly, and he would travel the world, basically gallivanting around all the royal courts of Europe, allegedly able to float and fly, and demonstrated it in London, in America, in France, and in Spain. However, he was doing that before this story. So the whole psychic transportation situation was already in the ether of the spiritualist movement.
Right.
So
We're not buying this one.
no. We know one of the psychics has got his back to the actual doors. At no point does anybody... I mean, it's just...
I like the guy who's doing a box jump, and he's like, no, I fell from the ceiling, whereupon I saw, oh, yeah, me too. I fell out of my chair from the ceiling. Yeah. Jesus.
It reminds me of, I'm trying to think of their names now. There was two American brothers, and their whole thing in the spiritualist movement was that they performed inside a cabinet, right? And so they would be in a cabinet, and then all these noise, like trumpets and stuff, would be heard. But this would only happen when they were in this cabinet, right? And apparently this was a massive success in the States. They went on tour everywhere, all through, and they eventually got a gig here, and so toured the UK, and they went to Liverpool and performed in Liverpool, and the crowd stormed the stage and smashed the cabinet up, and inside it was found lots of instruments. Isn't that weird?
I'm shocked. I think I saw that movie. I think it's called The Prestige.
Yes. Yeah. Precisely. That's what that they were a real pair of brothers.
Oh, no shit. Okay, I was kidding, but that was actually inspired by that.
Yes,
or at least
absolutely.
partially.
Yes,
Oh,
very much
no
so.
shit.
There's tons of them. There's tons of them. Some right wide boys and charlatans masquerading. There was a very famous guy here, even in the modern era, who's no longer with us. Colin Fry, I think his name was. He got caught several times treating, including on one occasion where they were doing... I mean, this is the thing. Why are we doing seances in a darkened room? Straight away, you're like, if you're that good, keep the light on, dickhead.
Yeah.
And this is like, in the last 30 years, they was doing a seance, but he was like they caught him with a knife to cut his bonds. When he was claimed to be tied to a chair, he secreted a knife on him so he could get loose and then tied himself back up. I don't know. But anyway, they proved he was doing that. And so somebody jumped up, turned the light on, and he was stood in the middle of the room with a trumpet. And he got a television show after that.
Fuck.
In the UK. I think he got caught 5 times and was still out there picking on vulnerable people and lying for money. I mean, this is my big thing with
lie?
them.
There's so much more money if we just lie, Paul. Let's just tell them it's demons. Come on, I got rent to pay. The demons played the trumpet. Come on. Yeah. Just work with me. 6 months of demons.
Yeah. So this is one of the things where I get really annoyed about people like that, because they're basically preying on vulnerable people. And that's beyond the pale for me.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, no, that's egregious. John Edwards saying shit and making someone feel better about their brother's death, even if he's not psychic, fuck it, whatever. I think I saw him, he did it. It was a net good. But I don't know. Yeah, doing your best Louis Armstrong in a darkened room, I don't know what that accomplishes aside from grifting.
It's always amazes me. It's like when you go to a spiritualist church, if you've not been there before, you get a card and you write your details on it. And it amazes me that people are somehow surprised later on that they get called out.
Well, you know what's funny? I went to a spiritualist church with Nick for about a few months, long time ago now. Never once bothered calling on us. They had like the spirit healers and shit at the front and all that stuff. And they never once, because they conclude every sermon with a display of platform mediumship. That's actually how they say it. We conclude this sermon with a display of platform mediumship. And yeah, shockingly, the newcomers to the newcomers were never called. It was always like, oh, Bob, Bob, your granddad. How'd you know? Oh, I don't. He's only been coming here every day for 6 years. I don't know how you could know that Bob's granddad is dead.
We went to his funeral, but he's here now.
Yeah. Yeah. Bob himself is teetering on the edge of the grave. Like, I think we can safely assume his elders are not with us anymore.
Is there anybody? I'm getting a D, and then somebody will shout, Derek, that's it, Derek's here, and he's got a message for you. What's your name, my love? Mary. Derek says he loves you, Mary, and he wishes he was still with us, and he hopes that you're happy. Oh, thank you.
He says, move on, Mary. Trust your heart. Find new love, perhaps with a charismatic religious leader that you know.
It could be somebody in this room.
I'm not saying it is. I'm saying it could be. You know, you got to keep an open mind.
I mean, where was I reading that?
Oh no.
There was a story. There is a very famous story from the 30s where a psychic was basically convinced somebody to leave their partner for them because the spirits had told them, and they went, "Yeah, all right." And the other woman went, "I'm not having this. I'm not having this. I'm going to take you to court and sue you, you charlatan."
I mean, I don't know. I feel like whoever left, the person who was left, they dodged a bullet. Let's just put it that way.
As they say on that famous clip from Australia, Love Island, "You haven't taken my man, you've taken my problem." Wise words to live by, I think, there.
No argument here. So speaking of things falling from the ceiling, I've been reading, as I've mentioned before, I've been reading Josh Cutchin's The Brimstone Deceit.
Yes.
And which is about paranormal smells. And he's talked about sulfur, he's talked about ozone, a little bit about ammonia, or what was the other one? There was a metallic smell, or a plastic, like a burning plastic smell. And this was one that smelled like burning rubber. And it was from, I'll just read you the segment here. Again, this is from the Brimstone Deceit by Josh Cutchin. You can get this online. I recommend it. It's pretty good. Mm-hmm. Candelaria Hernandez was washing her clothes in the river one day in 1945 when she claimed to see a giant burning bullet crash into the Guatemalan jungle. Shortly thereafter, a neighbor entreated her to come see the, quote, dummies that fell from heaven, who were dead and smelled like burned rubber. Hernandez declined the offer, later running into some foreign soldiers who, with the chief of police, allowed her to see 3 small, unrecognizable bodies, which seems bizarre. I had not heard of that. I mean, not that I'm up on this stuff generally, but I had not heard of that particular case. There's this other one here. During the Rhodesian UFO flap in the mid-1970s, farm laborers told investigators that the large orange orb seen flying through the sky was not an extraterrestrial craft, but rather, quote, a spirit from the dead whom they had met in the past. The spirit, they said, quote, gave off a strange smell like 2 stones rubbed together. And I throw that one in there because I think that's a cool example of where UFOs and the paranormal, like spirit world, kind of rub up against each other.
Yep. I think there are a lot of indigenous populations where the general consensus, what we would consider to be UFOs, they consider to be communication from ancestors or gods or wherever. And I suppose it's all in the eye of the beholder, isn't it? It's all down to your cultural reference, because a lot of people in certain territories would probably not have been exposed to the pantheon of ufology due to communications, newspapers, wherever. You only have the available sources to you. And so I'm unsurprised to see the local populace's opinion of what something might be would jar against the more, shall we say, enlightened Western view of what this phenomena could be. And so you will always have these things, like you say, brushing up against each other. But it's all a concept of the cultural references that they grew up in. So, which is, it's one of those things where we've got with Native American tribes and First Nations people, you will have communications with star people and the moon-eyed people and Bigfoot and things like that. And for them, it's pretty normal. One man's fairy is another man's alien. And you see that in the modern era, where you will have people who believe in the realm of the Fae who will try and steal UFO encounters. Bridgewater here in the UK is sorry, not Bridgewater. Broadhaven here in the UK is a prime example of that, where people are saying that the kids are all wrong. I mean, I hate this anyway, when researchers decide to tell the witness what they've experienced and they're wrong.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just shut up, right? Just shut up. But you also get ufologists trying to steal Fae reports and claim, oh, well, that must be an alien. It can't be.
Oh,
the
of
Fae,
course, yeah.
This is the thing. The Fae can't be real. It must be an alien. Whereas the others are going, well, aliens aren't real. It must be the Fae. You're like, right, okay. Which of these is the silliest? Or are they both the same? You know, let's just stop it. So, yeah.
And on that note, we're going to take a quick break for some ads. Although before we do, I was going to say we had someone else complaining about the number of ads in the show. And I'm just going to say, the only times there are ads in the show that we authorize are when we say this and then you hear our music. The tones, the da-da, da-da. When you hear that, those are ad breaks we put in there. If there are ad breaks anywhere else in the show, other than the very beginning and the very end, those are probably the platform you're listening on. So if you got Spotify free, those motherfuckers will shotgun ads into anything. It could be a news story about your grandma's funeral, and they will just blast ads in there willy-nilly. They don't give a shit. Same thing with YouTube. So if you are hearing an ad between the tones, that is something we've agreed to put there. Otherwise, it's just your platform, and we have no control over that. Welcome back. All right. So our next story is something in which I have a real interest, which is divination. I have fucked around a little bit with divination in the past. It seems like my body rejects it wholesale. Every time I try, I get like, I don't know. It's not even a conscious panic. I'm not afraid of it because I'm trying it. But I just have this like weird, I don't know, I start coughing. Usually is what happens. I don't know why. I have no idea why. I remember I tried scrying once at this ski resort in rural BC using a mirror. And my body was just like, literally, I could not stop coughing till I left the room. Totally fine. This is an article from people who have had far better luck than I have. This is, Have You Tried Scrying? By H. Addington Bruce. Toward the end of the 19th century, Pierre Genet, French psychologist, voiced this truism. Whatever has gone into the mind can come out of it. Genet believed, however, as do the materialists today, that nothing gets into the mind except through one of the recognized 5 senses. Yet it has been demonstrated by psychical researchers that the mind has a further reach. And in the demonstration of the further powers of the mind, scrying, more commonly called crystal gazing, should play an important part. Actually, scrying is not dependent upon a crystal ball. Words and pictures emerging surprisingly from the depths of the subconscious mind of the scryer can use other objects for a fulcrum. The best scryer I ever met used a broken telegraph cup held, partially wrapped in a handkerchief. It may be enough for the scryer to look at the surface of a polished table or into the depths of clear water. Important scrying images have been seen unexpectedly in clouds in the sky. Commonly, of course, what the scryer gets is recalls of facts once consciously known but quite forgotten. During the early years of study and experimentation by the English Society for Psychical Research, a Miss Goodrich Freer found she possessed the gift of scrying. She deliberately cultivated this gift for the Society's benefit and soon discovered that she could benefit from it herself. Again and again, looking into her crystal ball, Miss Goodrich Freer remembered names and dates she could not consciously recall, but which she wished to bring to mind for one reason or another. On at least one occasion, she received from the crystal facts she did not think she had ever known. Here is her own story as related in the English Society's proceedings. A relative of mine was talking one day with a caller in a room next to that in which I was reading. Beyond wishing that they were farther away, I love this person already. Get away from me, you peasants. Beyond wishing that they were farther away, I paid no attention to anything they said, and certainly could have declared positively that I did not hear a word. Next day, I saw in a polished mahogany table 1 Earl's Square, Notting Hill. I had no idea where this address might be, but some days later, my relative remarked, H, the aforementioned caller, has left Kensington. She told me her address the other day, but I did not write it down. It occurred to me to ask, was it 1 Earl's Square? And this turned out to be the case. Here we have a good illustration of the hyperesthesia, or heightening of one's senses, which is at the bottom of many hallucinations cited as proof of spirits or other supernatural agency. Another of Miss Goodrich Freer's crystal visions bears witness, in quite a different way, to the fact that daily we hear and see much more than we realize. Goodrich Freer was working on financial matters and opened a drawer to get her bank book. Her hand brushed against her crystal by accident. Welcoming a brief change in occupation, she took out the crystal and began looking into it. She found figures still were uppermost, and the crystal had nothing more attractive to show me than the combination 7694. Dismissing this as probably the number of the cab I had been in that day, or chance grouping of the figures with which I had been occupied, I laid aside the crystal and took up my bank book. I certainly had not seen it for months, but found to my surprise that the number on the cover was 7694. Had I wished to recall the figure, I should without doubt have failed and could not have guessed at the number of digits or the value of the first figure. Similarly, monitor that I got to say that is useless psychic power right there. Like I'm on her side, but that's like very much a who cares.
Yeah, that's pants.
Yeah, that's some bullshit. That's all. Christ, they're interviewing me today. I got to have something cool to say. I intuited a number on the page of a book I was just supposed to pick up. Cool. That's like that scene in Unfaithful, where the lover sends Diane Lane and he's trying to seduce her. Says like go down the end of the shelf, third row down, pick up the first book and read the second line on the 12th page. And he like reads it along with her because he's fucking prepared this whole thing. You know, no doubt he's pulled this shit on a million, desperate lonely women. This is the psychic version of that. Like, fuck, I need something.
Yes.
I picked up a book and I knew the first line. Oh God. Similarly monetary, and even stranger, was the experience of a patient of my friend, the late Dr. Isidore H. Coriat. Oh, man, we don't have names like this anymore. Boston. Dr. Coriat was a specialist in the treatment of hysteria and other functional nervous diseases, oh boy. Now believed to originate in long-forgotten shocks, and he sometimes used hypnotism and crystal gazing to recover, quote, disassociated memories. All right, so this just heads up, this is not a real thing, but they didn't know any better, I guess, in 1957. One day, this patient spoke to Dr. Coriat of a business problem that was worrying her. It had become important for her to remember the exact amount and the issuing bank of a check sent to her 2 years earlier. She could remember having received this check, but not the necessary details. Let me try to help you, said Dr. He's from Boston. Let me try to fucking help you.
It talks like Mark Wahlberg.
Oh, that fucking guy. I hate him so much. He's just a clown. Anyways, my Mark Wahlberg hate could fill several episodes.
Never been the same since he left the Funky Bunch.
Exactly. Let me try to help you, said Dr. Coriat. Don't worry, I'm not going to do the voice the whole time. First, he hypnotized the patient. Then he asked her to gaze into the crystal and tell him all she saw. Carefully, she wrote down everything she said she saw. This included a miniature picture of the check in question, with not only the information required, the amount and name of the bank, but the date, the payer's signature, and even the number stamped on the check. Dr. Coriat must have agreed with Miss Goodrich Freer's comment on her own experiences. Quote, certainly one result of crystal gazing is to teach one to abjure the verb to forget in all its moods and tenses. Miss Goodrich Freer at times saw in her crystal pictures of long-forgotten scenes and episodes of her earliest childhood. Other scryers report similar experiences. Still others report, in addition, crystal visions not connected with forgotten personal memories and in no way attributable to knowledge gained through their five senses. They seem clear evidence of telepathy or clairvoyance or some other mode of extrasensory perception. A young Englishwoman whose scrying ability was even greater than Miss Goodrich Freer's reported to the Society for Psychical Research, I was looking at my crystal one evening and saw my friend Lady Radnor seated in a room I had never seen, in a big red chair. I saw a lady in a black dress and white cap, quite unknown to me, come in and put her hand upon Lady Radnor's shoulder. I immediately wrote to Lady R to ask her what she was doing that evening, as I had seen her in the crystal. Shortly after, I saw Lady R, and she asked me to tell her what I had seen. She seemed quite nervous about what I might have seen. It was all as I had seen it. In confirmation, Lady Radnor herself testified to the society. This is perfectly right. Miss A had never been to Longford when she described my room correctly in every respect, even to the fact that my chair was touching the corner of the high fender. The chair was of a kind unusual in a bedroom. The description of the lady entering was right as to personal appearance as well as dress. Please do not inquire further as to who she was. The same scryer, known in the Society's records only as Miss A, looked into her crystal in the presence of a Sir Joseph Burnby and saw a lady wearing a serge dress with a great deal of beading on the bodice and a band of braid on the side of her skirt. She added that the lady was about to wash her hands. Sir Joseph, going a few days later to the summer hotel where his wife was staying, found that she had bought a dress exactly like that seen in the crystal. The scryer herself, Miss A, did not know Lady Burnby, but on meeting her some months later exclaimed, "This is the lady in the serge dress I saw in the crystal." An unusually interesting case of cloud scrying was reported to be by Mrs. E.C.N. Writing from Clovis, New Mexico, she related, "About 9 o'clock the evening of June 12th, I went out on the front porch and sat down in a rocker facing east. There was a cloud in that direction, through which came a flash of lightning at short intervals. Now and then I would glance there, as one naturally would. All at once the cloud seemed to open, and I saw it in a room, lighted as if by electricity. There was a library table and a large picture visible on the wall. A woman appeared who wore a red dress, another followed clad in a dark color, yet another dressed in light green. Then the forms of 3 men appeared on the steps leading down from the porch, and I looked over them into this room. This vision, if vision it was, lasted several minutes. There was a familiarity about the room, but no connection formed in my mind until, on the Monday following, I received notice of the death of a very dear friend in the morning of June 12th. I then wrote to a relative of hers asking what they had been doing in the house the evening of June 12th, who was there, and what colors of dresses they wore. Can you imagine you're in mourning and you get this letter from some dork?
Just what I need.
The answer received gave me this information. 4 intimate friends were present, one wearing a pink dress, another brown, and a third a light green. They were talking of me. A little later, 2 friends, men, stood on the steps and talked several minutes before leaving for home. This corroborated my vision, except I had seen 3 forms instead of 2. The third could have been the host, as the others were named. I had not been thinking of my friend that evening. So look, I believe this shit works. I believe scrying is possible. I've experimented with remote viewing. I know it's true. But that's just someone getting it wrong and being like, well, but maybe. Johann Wolfgang von Goethe had an even more startling experience. According to the only available account given by Johann Peter Eckermann, Goethe's close friend and fellow worker, Goethe, at Weimar, rang for his valet late one night. The valet found that Goethe had rolled his bed to a window and was looking out into the sultry night. Heavy clouds were illumined by an occasional flash of lightning. "Have you seen nothing in the sky?" he demanded of his valet. "That one looks like a penis."
Hey, look, a dog.
And that one's a bunny rabbit.
Clown. Do you see the clown in his pretty face?
I cannot wait for someone to invent TikTok. I've gotten into this this show. It's called Hanging with Dr. Z.
Oh.
It's have you seen this?
I've seen clips of it, yeah.
Yeah. It's a talk show hosted by the comedian Dana Gould, where he dresses up like Dr. Zaius from Planet of the Apes.
Yes.
And he on one of the clips he called it the TikTokerman, and that's just kind of stuck in my head now. Is the standard TikTok, because I'm old and I have to say the different way because I don't know, it just happens when you hit 40. Anyways, so Goethe's waiting for the TikTokerman to be invented, and so he's saying, "Have you seen nothing in the sky?" When the valet said no, Goethe ordered him to run to the guardhouse and ask the man on duty there if he had seen anything unusual. The report from the guardhouse was no also. Then Goethe said to the valet, "Listen, this is an important night. There is now an earthquake, or one is just going to take place." After saying this, the valet told Eckermann, "Goethe made me sit down on the bed and showed me by what signs he knew this." Shortly afterward, the news came that, on the very night, part of Messina in faraway Sicily had been destroyed by an earthquake. Apparently, this was not Goethe's only extrasensory experience at Weimar, for Eckermann added, "I asked the valet if he had once believed there had been an earthquake, as Goethe said. Yes, he told me. I believed it, for things always happened as he said they would. Next day, he related his observation at court. One lady whispered to her neighbor that Goethe had been dreaming, but the Duke and all the men present believed Goethe. Scrying as a subject for scientific... So they're not going to tell us what he said? He was totally right. I swear. Man, look, again, I believe this shit. I know it sounds like I don't, but this is shoddy work. H. Addington Bruce, you half-assed this one. Scrying as a subject for scientific study has fallen into neglect since the beginning years of psychical research. Can't imagine why with these sterling examples. The reason given for this is that scryers with the abilities of Miss Goodrich Freer and Miss A are thought to be extremely rare. But it occurs to me that perhaps they are not so rare, and study of present-day scryers might contribute to a better understanding of telepathy, clairvoyance, precognition, and retrocognition. Besides, a thorough study of scrying would seem bound to bring immediate practical results to the man or woman who has the patience to attempt it. Scrying's importance as a help in dredging up forgotten facts from the storehouse of the subconscious is already established. Scrying may be found similarly helpful to stimulating the subconscious to produce new ideas. Hereward Carrington cites the case of one scryer who was a writer of fiction. Like most fiction writers, she sometimes had difficulty working out plots. Then she would look into her crystal. There she would see her imaginary characters acting out little dramas on their own. Perhaps you and I should try scrying for the solutions to our problems. All right, so again, I know we stomped all over that one, but I think it works. I've actually done a version of this for some of my writing for fear. I got into, I think I told you about this, I got into Jungian meditation.
Yes.
Which is essentially a version of this. You're just kind of like going inside yourself, and shit just comes out. You mentally get these images and you just kind of follow them, and they take you through all kinds of insane nonsense. It's actually very, very useful. Mm-hmm. And certainly, I mean, you must have had an experience like this, Paul, where you're distracted enough to remember something.
Yeah.
It's almost like you need to get your conscious mind out of the way for
Yes.
the recall to take place.
Yes. Very much so. Very much so. Yeah, Addington Bruce is a strange character. Primarily because he's Canadian, but he always told people he was American.
Traitor.
And he was a bit of a weirdo because he was 100% convinced that telepathy was real, but poltergeist phenomenon was not.
Okay.
So make of that what you will.
We're right back to the thing we were talking about before, where the UFO guys are like, dead people, fairies, give me a break. The fairy people are like, UFOs? You must be full of shit.
Yeah, yeah. You can find most of his books as well on Project Gutenheim, the online resource, which is basically collected. Gutenberg, sorry, yeah. Project Gutenberg. So if you want to see some of his earlier works, where he produces very flimsy evidence for telepathy, then you can find his work on there.
Well, unless I'm scrying and he comes back and says, I'm sorry for forsaking my Canadian identity, he can go fuck himself.
Well, you do right, mate. He's also very weird because he was quite a prolific writer until the end of the First World War. And then I don't think he released another book till he died 30 years later or something. Very strange character. So I'm not sure what went on there. But he was part of the American Society for Psychical Research as well. So he was knee deep in it at the turn of the century and into the earlier stages of the 20th century. He was all in.
Interesting. I mean, yeah, again, I'm 100% on board for scrying and divination and things like that. Again, I do think they work, but I think, Mr. Bruce was, that was pretty flimsy. I mean, and even the telepathy. I mean, I've told you a couple times about the stories, which I'll just reiterate quickly for anyone who hasn't heard. But back when I was chucking luggage for the ferry company, this would be a long time ago now. Let's not get into how long ago it was. A long time ago. But after the financial crash, I had to take whatever work I could get. And so I was a check-in agent and a luggage handler for a passenger ferry service down to Port Angeles, Washington. And I had a woman come up to me, and I can't remember, she had a question for me. I think it was something about, I'm expecting a phone message and they're going to leave it at the terminal. How will I know when the message is there? And I said, they'll announce it over the intercom. They'll say, Mrs. I literally picked a name out of the air. I said, Mrs. Beetlebaum, come to the front desk for your message. And she went, oh, how did you know my cat's name was Beetlebaum? And I just went, a lucky guess. Because I was not into paranormal shit at this time. And it was literally just I don't know. But the odds of correctly guessing that are fucking astronomical.
Yeah, definitely. That's specific as well.
Yeah.
It's not like it's called Tiddles.
No, or like Johnson. I don't know. It's such a weird name, And the other time I did that was I was back when I used to work. This is in the same period where I'm just taking whatever work they can get me. I was doing temp contracts in this lab as a shipper receiver in a lab. And they have a cafe in the building that is only accessible by people with the card. It's one of a handful of places in Victoria that it's a totally private restaurant. So unless you work there or someone like gets you a guest pass, you cannot get in. Which is not to say it's any good. It's just hard to get into, you know. It's like Al Capone's safe, you know. You get in there and you're like, there's
Like Tesla's safe.
There you go. Was that also, did that happen with Tesla's safe as well?
Allegedly, yeah. It was apparently cleaned out, wasn't it? In the hotel room, all his documents and everything had disappeared.
Oh, right. You know, quickly, just I know I'm squirreling all over this shit, but I want to quickly just go back to the Tesla thing. And something that I thought was interesting about the Tesla article that I forgot to mention at the time is you mentioned that people have sort of this idea that the Tesla pigeon story is something that's only come up in the last 20 or so years as interest in Tesla has kind of risen again. And of course that this article goes back to 1957. And I actually think it's really instructive if you can find these older sources for shit like this, because I think it gives you an even more clear-eyed view of particular stories. Like, I was listening to Behind the Bastards when I really got into it a couple of years ago. I think it was on my way down to Indiana. I was listening to the episode about Steve Jobs, and one of the sources he used was the Walter Isaacson biography, which is essentially a hagiography, because everything Isaacson fucking writes is a hagiography. But he also used a book written about Jobs shortly after he left Apple the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And the stories that are told there are much more raw than the stories that get told in later volumes. And I think wherever possible, if you can find sources closer to the time, again, it's not going to be perfect, but I think you're going to get nuance that it gets sanded off the more times it's told.
Yeah, or exaggerated the longer it goes, you know?
Or, that too. Which I guess technically could be true of the story I'm about to tell, but fuck it, anyways. So when I was working in Al Capone's safe, there was a young woman who worked at the counter, and we got friendly, you know, because she had a tattoo on her arm that was the cover of the Leonard Cohen album, The Future. And I thought, it was very cool. And I told her that, and she was surprised I recognized it. So we had a brief chat about that album. And so because I had a lanyard with my name on it, she got to know my name. And so eventually she'd be like, "Hey, Brennan." And I say, "Hey." And then finally one day I said, "Hey, you know, it occurs to me, I don't actually know your name." And she said, "Oh, it's a secret." And I said, "Oh, okay." And I said, "Oh, I'm going to make up a name for you. I'm going to call you," and the name Stanislaus went through my head. And then it kind of just like got pulled back to Stan. And I said, "I'm going to call you Stan." And she said, "That's funny. My granddad's name was Stan. Well, Stanislaus, but we called him Stan." Again, it could just be random chance. You know, it's not entirely possible. My dickhead brain will throw stuff out there sometimes. And don't worry, I'm not so obnoxious that I actually called her Stan or made me tell her name. But, you know, just pulled it out of the air and it happened to be right. And there's been enough shit like that in my life for me to go, yeah, okay, there's something to this. Sorry, you mentioned poltergeist as well. And I found this other, it was a New Fork report that I thought you might find interesting. It's from 2006. It's from Alberta. And New Fork is National UFO Reporting.
Yes, it's Peter Davenport's organisation.
There we go. Yes.
Top man. What a wonderful researcher, Peter.
Oh, cool. Okay, so I heard the name. I hadn't realized that he was as good. That's nice to know, actually, that I feel better about this report.
Yeah. Peter was, he's knocking on now. I think his son's running it. But you can find numerous interviews. He was a regular guest on Art Bell in the 90s.
So yeah, that makes this even better. So this is from 2006 from Bragg Creek, Alberta. About 2 a.m., a friend and I were awoken in his country home south of Bragg Creek. We heard a low humming noise and clattering against all windows of the house. We looked outside and saw 20 or more tiny blue lights in the sky. We quickly picked up the video camera and began filming. The objects were very high up in the night sky, but were clearly not human. They moved freely in any direction, or they hovered together, one on top of the other, a few miles apart in the sky. This continued for about an hour. We noticed the objects getting much larger as they slowly lowered themselves to Earth. We managed to get 1 or 2 close-ups on video, but the quality wasn't great. The ridge above the house, about 1.5 miles to the north, began to emit a day-like glow. Most of the objects were no longer visible, but the humming sound had become almost deafening. Suddenly the wind began to rip at the house out of the north. The lights pulsated on the horizon, and clouds of smoke began to rise up slowly from each light. There were about 6 lit-up areas. I picked up the phone to call someone, but the line wasn't working. It was buzzing like it does when the TV has no channel on it. We leaned out of the window to see better and listen. We heard the most eerie howl, not like any coyote we'd ever heard, almost a siren, but not as perfect. They came from each lit-up hilltop. They were followed by a loud, blood-curdling, deep scream, definitely not human. It filled the entire valley, and what followed was odd for midwinter in Canada. A warm, strong breeze came from the north, almost hot, and smelled like burning plastic or something close to that. The sensor light outside kept coming on, and we heard crashing and banging against the house, scratching through the walls on every side. Neither one of us saw anything for sure, but we both thought we saw a very tall, pale figure that had a human-like shape and glowing eyes running across the driveway. Petrified, we shut ourselves in and listened intently. We looked out the window for a bit longer to see the smoke puff up from the lit-up hilltops again, and then tiny blue lights like we had seen earlier shot up quickly to an instant hover, then began getting smaller as they flew higher into the sky. Which is just a bizarre thing to experience. And again, it's like, I know it sounds UFO-y, but I think also it crosses into kind of weird poltergeist shit.
Very much so. Yeah. New Folks register and accounts number in the thousands. So it's an excellent resource. Because I think Peter took it over in the early 90s because he was I'm not trying to think if he was an investment bank. He basically made a fortune in financial matters.
Okay.
But he was also really interested in UFOs. And so he basically sold everything and just took it over. I'm not sure if he still does, but he did live in a disused rocket silo in Seattle, outside of Seattle, I think.
That's fantastic. Well, yeah, folks, if you want to check out the New Fork site, it's nuforc.org. There's tons of cool stuff there. I literally just punched in Revelstoke, and there are five different cases from my own hometown, which I have not actually looked at yet. So if there's 5 from Revelstoke, chances are there's one from your town as well.
I'm wondering as well, going back to the last story with our friend in Germany. So that I can only presume that incident happened in 1908, which is the infamous Messina earthquake, which is the most devastating earthquake in European recorded history.
Oh, no kidding.
125,000 people were killed.
Holy fucking shit. What caused the death toll? Was it a tsunami or just building collapse?
Both.
Oh my God, that's terrifying. That is a mind-breaking number of people.
Yeah, well, it was. I'm not sure if it happened at night as well, but it was absolutely devastating. And it's certainly one of the most. I mean, as we say, there's obviously been one in Japan this morning, which
I was not aware of this.
Yeah, there's a evacuation at the minute. There's a shopping centre collapsed.
Oh my God.
And they're trying to get people out. There's something else that's collapsed as well. So there's a big rescue operation going on at the minute. It was 6.8.
Jesus Christ.
A pair of true mystic experiences now. First up, the command to stop. In 1929, a friend, Lillian Ralph, and I drove from the Middle West to New York. The trip was wonderful until we reached the outskirts of Indianapolis, where we ran into a severe rainstorm. This storm was said to be one of the worst in the state's history. The rain fell in torrents and darkness completely enveloped the earth, but since we were only a few miles from the city, we crept along. Suddenly, I heard a voice say, "Stop!" The command was so forceful and urgent that I obeyed at once. I asked my friend if she'd heard it, but she said no. She wanted to go on as she feared the motor would die and we would be unable to continue into the city when the rain stopped. We let the motor run. We sat and talked, our nerves getting more tense, but I would not resume driving. The voice had carried a force that told me I must obey. Several hours later, the storm broke, and crews of repairmen arrived at the scene. They told us that across the road, only 10 feet from the front of our car, was a live wire. Certain death. I am grateful for that command to stop, but I shall never understand who gave it.
And just thinking about that one, I was thinking there's, I interviewed a guy once who was working, it's in Strange actually, he was working up at the Micah Creek Dam. And he used to, apparently back in the day, this was common. You buy a 6-pack of beer and then start driving home after work. And, it's a,
Didn't we all?
fairly long drive. Right? A tale as old as time. And so he was getting a load on.
On a slight aside, I once found a beer mat many years ago in a pub, and on it said, "Remember, 4's the limit," as in 4 pints. Now it's half.
Like to drive?
Half. Yeah. Now it's half. That's the legal limit in the UK. It's half.
So yeah, the guy was drinking his beers on the way home, and I guess it was quite misty. And he was just bombing along, and then all of a sudden he saw these eyes in the fog, and so slammed on the brakes and realized that when he kind of was very shaken up, pulled over, got out of the car, realized that the road had sharply curved, and if he had not seen the eyes, he would have gone straight over. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. There's someone out there watching out for idiots.
Thankfully.
Yeah, it's kept me alive a few times.
We're okay.
This podcast exists because of it. So maybe maybe that is a demon. Who knows?
The demon Zippy.
We had a few comments on the last installment of Zippy. They were very impressed. I was like, I shouldn't tell him because it's gonna keep going. There's gonna be a whole Zippy themed show at the end of this.
Well, sadly, one of the man who was responsible for Zippy voice has passed away this week in the UK. So it's a sad moment for a lot of people's memories of children's television of the 70s and 80s.
Oh, goddamn. Well, we'll keep doing it to honor him.
Absolutely.
Just before we start with the Omen of Death here, I want to shout out our patron Werewolfy, who for some reason, whenever I do the search on Patreon to get all the people who are donating at the appropriate tiers, it never gives me fucking Werewolfy's name. So I keep forgetting to add it. So Werewolfy, this one's for you, Ghost Force, and we'll get you next time, I promise.
Oh,
I would like to meet his tailor.
Now let's have a heartwarming story about an omen of death. I'm relating a strange experience of one of the residents of my small village, a man whom I will call John Roberts. In March 1956, John was standing outside on the boardwalk, as so many of the village men did, thinking about outfitting his boat for the fishing season. He heard the raspy calls of crows and the shrieks of a few ravens. He noticed idly that there were ravens upon the peak of his roof. They were walking slowly, leg over leg along the peak. As they walked, they stretched their necks and shrieked again. Suddenly, as John watched, one raven seemed to fall. It disappeared from view on the other side of the house. Startled, John ran around his house and onto the beach behind it. He saw the raven lying motionless, and with a chilled feeling, he turned it over. The bird was dead. John was chilled because, according to the Thinglet beliefs, the dead raven was an omen of death in his family, and even now his youngest son was in the hospital in a nearby town. His wife was going by plane to bring the baby back. All had seemed well up till now, and the doctors at the hospital said the baby was well enough to return home. John was reluctant to believe there was anything to this legend, but the raven falling dead from his rooftop certainly was strange. As he thought about it, his concern grew, and finally he hurried along the boardwalk to the man who many of them regarded as the chief. A few of the old customs were followed now, at least openly, but this wise old man knew about the old ways. John told the chief about the raven. Is the omen true, he asked. Does the death of the bird mean death to my house? The old man hesitated. Perhaps he felt he was asking a great deal, that he did state frankly whether as an old, much-respected omen was true. He shook his head. I think you will find you need not to worry, John, he said slowly. Feeling comforted, John left and returned home. A few days later, his wife returned by plane from her trip to the hospital. With her was the baby, in a small casket. John still does not understand the baby's sudden death, when all seemed well. All he can think of is the dead raven omen. Well, that took a turn at the end, didn't it?
Jesus. Oh. Quoth the raven, take a minute to collect yourself.
Yes, there is a lot of connections with animals of a variety of things with their passing or their behaviour to do stuff. Obviously, we have a thing here about tell the bees. You know, if somebody's passed away, you've got to tell them. Talk to the bees and give them the news. It's an old English folk custom.
No kidding.
Yeah, it's also why Sian Ellis's wonderful periodical that she does is called Tell the Bees, and that's where it comes from.
Oh, no kidding. I'm going to make a note of that. I've never actually heard of it, but I'm trying to find more writers who do this kind of stuff.
I have to sort them all out because I'm not sure which issues I'm missing.
What's the author's name again?
She's called Sian Ellis. She's the wonderful artist who does all the ghost maps here in Sheffield. And so she does like a periodical herself called Tell the Bees.
Ah, there we go. Yes. I'll put a link to this in the show notes. Actually, you can order the zine. I do love zines.
Yes, very good, and usually has a different theme every issue. So well recommended.
Oh, very cool. No, I've read that the zines are making a comeback, which I think is it's fantastic.
It's the best way to listen to music on cassette, I've heard, is reading a zine.
Help me follow that one.
Because cassettes are cool again now. Well, they are here in the UK. People are buying cassettes again.
Right. I think I would actually rather a cassette than a CD. I think I prefer that particular tactile experience more than the CD, even though I know the sound quality is not the same.
Certainly, CD Walkmans were shit.
Yes, agreed. And I do enjoy the singular terror of when your batteries start to fail in your Walkman and it starts slowing down. Speaking of folklore, there's a book I read which you might enjoy, and folks, I think people listening, some of you might really dig it. It's a Danish book called The Wax Child. And I'd meant to bring it up before, and I've just completely went out of my head and then mentioned it. And it's a Danish book. It is based on the witch trials that happened in the 17th century in Denmark. Is heavily researched with its folklore. And so it's all told from the perspective of a wax child that one of the women makes using like wax and fingernail parings and things like this, and then kind of brings into life. Mm-hmm. And it's really unusual. It's a good read. It's kind of, I guess you'd call it like queer folk horror.
Yeah.
Or a queer historical folk horror or something like that. But it's a quick read. I think I plowed through it in about 2.5 days. The translation of it was released by Book Hug Press here in Toronto. But I just happened to stumble into it when I was in Little Red Bookstore in London. And I know I can't remember the name of the woman, but one of the women, or it might have been the woman who runs the place, recommended it. And she was not wrong. It's pretty solid. So if you want some Danish folk horror that's well researched, check out The Wax Child.
Yeah. There's a interesting parallel across a lot of places with things like that, isn't there? Like the golem and stuff.
Of course. Yeah. Although I think The Wax Child is more, it's because it doesn't really it can't move on its own in the book. It's more like a totem, but it's a totem that is kind of aware.
I think it's less creepy than those people that have those fake babies. I mean, that's a whole level of terror, isn't it?
I mean, so now are we talking like American Sniper fake baby?
We're talking about people who purchase life-looking babies and like put them in the car seats and drive around with them and stuff. So it's basically like the ultimate doll, because it is essentially the most realistic thing, and it's deeply disturbing.
So I'm probably going to regret this, but why?
I don't know. I would imagine there's a lot of psychological issues at play here, Brennan. I'm not qualified to delve into their psyche, I'm afraid. And they look creepy as well. They don't,
Oh, they would, yeah, 100%. Okay, well, I'm going to look this up because that sounds terrifying, and I must know more. And folks, if you were wondering what the fuck I was talking about with American Sniper, check it out. Check out the childbirth scene. They are using a plastic baby. It is just a doll. Not a very good doll either. It is very clearly just a plastic doll, because apparently on the day of shooting, the baby who was meant to be in the scene, the parents no-showed, and the backup baby's parents also no-showed. And so Clint said, "Give me the doll." The doll was used, and it became it's very, very funny.
Is it up there with Mick Farris's feet behind the giant monster in which one is it now? Is it Ghoulies? Not Ghoulies. Critters 2.
I mean, I feel like this probably had about 30 times the budget of Critters 2, so I think it's worse.
Yeah, like the man doing a Mooney in The Day After Tomorrow, or wherever it is, the disaster film.
I don't think I know that one.
So when the tidal wave comes towards the beach, somebody on camera just runs up and pulls a guy's shorts down. And it's right in the corner of the screen. So it's one of those things, unless somebody tells you about it. It's like the stormtrooper who knocks his head on the blast door in Star Wars.
Right.
Once you see it, you can't not see it. But until you point it out, you just haven't seen it or it hasn't registered. And it's one of them.
Or the creepy kid that you pointed out in Back to the Future 3 who's fiddling around with his bits.
Yeah, he's punching at his cock.
Oh boy. On the dark side of that, I watched the film Confidence when I was back in Victoria, which is 2004 era kind of heist type film directed by Ed Burns, who's sort of like a rough draft of Ben Affleck. It's one of those like hyper stylized kind of gangster films that what's his name? Your guy, Guy Ritchie. Is responsible for.
Blimey, what a load of cockney barrel of monkeys. Whatcha? Yeah.
Exactly, but like the LA version of that. But there's a scene where Dustin Hoffman's character, who's the evil gang lord, he meets with Ed Burns and Rachel Weisz. He gropes Rachel Weisz's chest, and she looks suitably disgusted. And in the trivia, it says that wasn't part of the rehearsal. He just spitballed that. He's just like, well, you know what I think my character would do? I think my character would assault this young lady. And then Dustin Hoffman just went and did that. And I got to tell you, man, I would have shot him right there if I was her. I mean, I recognize power dynamics. He was an established actor. She was very new, so you can't actually shoot him. But just what an absolute creep.
Has he seen Daniel Craig?
I think this is pre-Daniel Craig. This is like 2003, so.
So if we find Dustin Hoffman hanging upside down from a balcony sometime, we'll know Bond's been involved.
we should get a hold of old Dan. We got the time machine we were talking about earlier.
That's a good idea, actually.
And in a terrible kind of synchronicity, Edward Burns was in A Sound of Thunder, which is one of the worst sci-fi films ever made, adapted from a Ray Bradbury story, from which I think the butterfly theory thing was taken, or at least was probably the first popular representation of it.
Yep. I mean, you've got to do bad if you fuck up a Bradbury story, haven't you?
Oh, I fucked it up seems like too generous. They like hit it with a car on a back road, then tossed the body down an embankment where it was found by bears. That's what they did to that story.
Indeed. In fact, it says here, A Sound of Thunder is often credited as the origin of the term butterfly effect, which is the concept of chaos theory, in which the flapping of a butterfly's wings in one part of the world could create a hurricane on the opposite side of the globe. However, the term was actually introduced by meteorologist Edward Norton Lorenz in the 1960s, yet Bradbury's concept of how the death of a butterfly in the past could have drastic changes in the future is a representation of the butterfly effect and has been used as an example of how to consider chaos theory and the physics of time travel.
Oh, okay. There we go. I wondered if it was the origin, but obviously not quite. But it popularized it.
Well, I think the actual theory is, clearly, I mean, Bradbury was a man ahead of his time on many, many levels. But without calling it that is essentially what it is. Because, you know, A Sound of Thunder, that is the key thing that they realise. They think it's this, and it's not. Because something else happens in that, and they think that's the reason things have gone to shit. And then they realise at the end that it's not that, it is the actual death of a butterfly. Yeah.
Because it's actually a pivotal election. They go back in time on the eve of a pivotal election between sanity and fascism. And they get into the machine, I know, right? Yeah. When they get into the time machine, when they come back, Donald Trump's president.
Has somebody got time travel?
Well, I'm starting to wonder. Again, I'm telling you, look, what we're going to do is we're going to figure out who's got the time machine. We're going to go get Daniel Craig. We're going to go back in time and put Dustin Hoffman in the same chair that Bond was in Casino Royale. And while we're doing that, we're going to play some ads so you guys have something to listen to. But don't worry, we'll be back before you know it. Our last story of the night from Fate Magazine, April 1957 edition, is Music in the Storm by E. Emma Robinson. In the summer of 1931, I was appointed teacher at a school in Warminster, Virginia, once an incorporated town, but no longer because of a decreasing population. For the next 5 years, there was never a dull moment. No explorer in a strange land could have had more of a feeling of high adventure than I. The low two-room schoolhouse had white clapboard siding and a red roof. Tall, wide windows provided ample lighting from the east, west, and south, and a square porch led into the center hall. Around the building was a magnificent growth of saplings, sprinkled here and there with tall pines, oaks, and sycamores, except on the east side where golden grain rolled like waves over the meadow into the blue sky. There hardly could have been a more attractive place for children to study. The children were of sturdy, substantial stock. They were not spoiled by too much worldly goods. If anything, they suffered from lack of it. They were well enough behaved for the most part, although, like high-spirited, energetic children anywhere, they occasionally were difficult to keep in hand. One March morning 3 years after I arrived, a unique phenomenon held us spellbound in our little schoolhouse. I still puzzle over it, for nothing like it had ever happened before, and nothing like it has happened since. We had 2 days and nights of drenching rain, such as we often have during the spring season. On Friday, the third day of the storm, the air was charged with electricity. I felt the surge of it in the winds that tugged at my waistcoat as I mushed my way through the pasture and across the field toward the schoolhouse. It was exhilarating, but I was glad when I reached my cozy classroom. I went through my morning routine of making the room comfortable for the day and of arranging study materials so the children could get them easily. I opened the windows here and there, just a crack, for the wind was blowing the rain against the building in a torrential spray. Then I seated myself at a large desk with a notebook and pen. As I wrote, I gradually became aware of music, coming from what seemed to be a symphony orchestra. It was everywhere about me, seeming to fill the very air. I distinctly heard strings, woodwinds, harp, timpani, now crescendo, now pianissimo. The rhythm swept me wildly along with it. I was lost in a labyrinth of sweet, swelling sound. The door opened to admit Nanny, Maud, James, Lizzie, and Bessie, my early birds to keep me company. They usually bustled in, chattering and laughing. But this morning they stood speechless on the threshold, glancing first at me, then at the curtains fluttering in the breeze. They quietly removed their coats, picked up drawing and writing materials from the supply table and took their seats. Looking oddly absorbed, for all the world as if enchanted, they immediately got busy. A few minutes later, the door burst open and Edith, Joe, and Charles ran in and out of the storm. They followed the pattern set by the previous arrivals, stopping short as if transfixed and gazing in wonder about the room. Then, as if seized by the enchantment that held the others, they silently obtained work materials and became wrapped in their tasks. Had the rhythm of the music swept them all into its magnetic embrace? I was certain that, like myself, they did hear something exquisite and strange that held them under a spell of awe. Their enwrapped silence itself was unusual, for as a rule, long after they took their seats, there would be the sounds of rustling clothes and scraping feet, whispers and giggles, the sounds of children too full of health and energy to be completely still. But this particular morning they were oddly quiet. Willie hurried in, rain spattered and wind-blown, looking as if he might explode at any moment. But even he, to my astonishment, caused hardly a ripple in the still pool of the classroom. As if he instantly sensed the magic atmosphere, the bursting excitement so characteristic of him ebbed, and he promptly joined the others in work. I went on writing in a detached way, listening to the glorious strains that breathed through the room and feeling a vague fear that the uniqueness of the moment might be lost. It seemed to me that the children and I never before had been in such perfect accord, so en rapport. We seemed to think and feel as one. We were completely immersed in the majestic orchestration that surged in rhythm with the storm. Our spirits were borne irresistibly on waves of sound. Yet part of me wondered what possibly could be the cause of the phenomenon. Was it some unusual property of the storm? Some harmony of the electrical forces that charged the atmosphere? I thought of the other storms that had raged around the schoolhouse during the time I had taught there, but none had ever produced such melodious sounds or had such a deep emotional effect on the children. At this moment, Raymond and Roy, tall and adventurous and showing unmistakable signs of having wrestled mightily with the elements, flung open the door and strode in. The two had given me many anxious moments when I first arrived, indulging in frequent fistfights and rebelling against discipline. Raymond had once come to school with a flask of whiskey in his pocket, and on another occasion had brought a mean-looking knife which he had brandished at the younger children, threatening to scalp them. Jesus.
Raymond's got problems.
But,
Raymond Bundy.
It was all in a spirit of boyish mischief. Was it? Was it? Okay, anyways, Emma, I'm on your side up to this point, so we're just going to let it go. But both time and tact had been required to settle them quietly into the school routine. Usually they clumped into the room in a sort of unconscious assertion of their superiority in size and strength over the others. But on this occasion, they sensed the charmed mood that lay over everyone. Hanging up their coats, they supplied themselves with study materials and noiselessly took their seats. They appeared to be using ears, as well as eyes and hands, in going about their business. We worked on listening. I do not know how long we remained under the spell of that ethereal symphony. Time did not matter. But the sky was growing dark, and we had no artificial light system in the school. Due to that, and the fact that so few pupils had shown up in the storm, I dismissed the class early. Filing out one by one to strains of the continuing rhapsody, all had finally gone, except Maud. She was waiting to help me close the windows and lock the building. What a wonderful day, I said, as we closed the door. And wasn't the music beautiful? Or didn't you hear it? Of course we did, she said, almost reproachfully. Everybody heard it. I thought you knew. That's why we didn't talk. Her remark made concrete something that had been dreamlike, unreal. I hadn't just imagined the music, but the mystery deepened. Who had produced the sounds I had heard? To this day, I still don't know. And that is spectacular. Well, that is easily the best story in the book. But surely there are other examples of this.
It's not common, but there are numerous reports of similar incidents involving groups of people or individuals where they've heard weird music or whatever. Dr. Melvin Willin, who is a member of the SPR here in the UK, has written a book about 20 years ago called Music, Witchcraft and the Paranormal, which basically looks into accounts of mysterious music being heard in regards to that, as well as researching into people who have near-death experiences, and some of them claim to hear music at the same time.
Interesting. I mean, if I get really stoned, like really stoned, if I'm able to stay awake, I'll hear music. But I don't know enough about music, like I can't transcribe it.
Yep.
But I'll hear.
To me, once that.
Yeah. What kind of music did you hear?
I basically felt, I'm convinced for some reason that one of my fillings was picking up a radio channel. I know this might sound balmy, because it was literally playing music of the era. So it was like I tuned into a radio station that was playing lots of music as we were travelling on a bus back to Sheffield, to the point where I was getting up and listening to the speakers, and I kept going, "Can't you hear that?" And I was going, I can hear songs in my head that I either don't like or don't know that well. And it was literally like I'd got a radio playing inside my head for about half an hour.
Shit.
Not loud.
Wow.
But it was loud enough for me to think it must be a speaker there on the bus or wherever. There must be something playing for us, and there was nothing there. Can't explain it. But what I think, like I say, I think somehow one of my fillings had degraded in such a way that perhaps it was causing a connection that was picking up a radio signal somewhere.
I think I've actually read of something like that before, so I guess it's not impossible.
It wouldn't surprise me. It's certainly better than thinking, is there a ghost out there that's really into Britpop in 1996? Because I think that's a less plausible explanation than perhaps it's just a chemical reaction that's picking up a radio wave. I mean, there are lots of stories of people encountering sort of military ghosts as well, where there's music played as well. Scotland, England,
interesting.
Wales, Ireland, there's stories of that, people encountering, they hear the music first and then they see the spirits.
Oh, okay.
Like the music's like the music is the first part of the phenomena that people are aware of, and then all of a sudden the characters appear. I'm not too sure if I've heard that at Gettysburg as well.
Wouldn't surprise me. say my one experience with that was when I like where it was like really, really in my head was I was baked, and it was just after I watched Empire Records, and I was so certain the song was so fully formed that I was like, oh, this must be in the soundtrack, but I don't think it is. But the lyrics are, who needs ya, I'd rather be in Micronesia. And it's like a 3-chord punk song. And there's a female voice going like, who needs over and it's just like, dun, 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 dun. And again, I'm not a musician. I can't compose music for shit. But this popped into my head while I was stoned out of my gourd as the credits were rolling for that movie. So again, maybe it's on the soundtrack and I missed it, or maybe if I get high enough, I'm a vessel for the spirit eternal. I don't know. I'm certainly not a musician. I'll tell you that much.
Well, I'm not surprised that there are examples of this, because as we were talking about strange smells and things, right? I mean, this is the thing about the clairescence aspect of psychic abilities. It isn't just clairvoyance, is it? You know, there are several versions. People get smells, people hear music. There are all kinds of things. So, and it's an intrinsic part of culture to time immemorial, isn't it? It's throughout the world, people have always used music as a form of communication or whatever. So why wouldn't it be in the psychic realm?
Sure. Yeah, it makes all the sense in the world to me.
And of course, you've had those nutters who claim to be speaking to dead composers and creating new sonnets. I was talking about this the other day on something. There was a very famous or infamous British psychic who claimed to have no musical training, and she was able to sort of recreate these new pieces of music from legendary composers. And then it turned out that she was actually classically trained, and all her family were musical, and she could play the guitar and the piano. And she was just a very good musician who was just making shit up.
This is what you got to do to get your shit heard these days. Yeah, it's like,
next thing I know, she's flying. She's turned up on a table.
It's a cauldron full of keys. It's the whole thing.
Dogging and swinging in the realms of the psychic phenomena.
God bless him. At least someone's having fun. That's what I say. All right. Well, on that distressing psychic note, we are going to bring this episode to a close. Our exploration of Fate magazine, April 1957. And of course, if you have a story you want to share for a future show, you can send it to us at ghoststoryguys@gmail.com. You can also fill out the form on our website at ghoststoryguys.com. We're on Instagram as The Ghost Story Guys. We're on Facebook as The Ghost Story Guys Cabin. And we are on Reddit as r/Ghost Story Guys Podcast. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Hey there, listeners. Before you reach for that skip 15 seconds ahead button, I promise you this isn't an ad. We wanted to take a minute to talk to you about mental health. On this show, I've always tried to be as honest and open as possible about my struggles with depression and anxiety, because even though we've come a long way towards acknowledging the very real damage these things can do, there is still way too much lingering stigma about reaching out for help. And when you start to feel like there's no help, it's easy to start feeling like there's no hope. But Paul has joined me today to remind you there is always hope and there's always help.
We're not going to try and talk you out of self-harming right now, because we know that's not how it works. Instead, what we wanted to do was tell you something now and hope that should things get bad, you'll remember it and make a phone call or send a text message before you make any permanent decisions. As someone who knows all too well just how important mental health can be, it's never too late to reach out.
In Canada, the number to call is 133-456-4566. In the USA, the new number to call is 988. That's 988.
In the UK, the number to call is 116123 or text SHOUT, that's SHOUT, to 85258. In Australia, the number to call is 131114.
However bad shit seems, it will pass. And no matter what your brain might be telling you at any given moment, and believe me when I say I know this intimately, there are people who love you and people who care deeply about how you treat yourself. Should a time come when you find yourself despairing, please know that we've both been where you are, and there is a way back to the world. Take care.
Welcome back. Our paranormal conductor is Mr. Brennan Storr.
And of course, my friend and co-host is the one, the only, the inimitable Paul Bestel, the paranormal Johnny Carson himself, host of Mysteries and Monsters. Paul, what's coming up on M&M?
I welcome back our good friend, Luke Phillips, as we dive into his latest novel, Dark Tides, and explore the terrifying creatures that hide beneath the surface of the sea. As we dive into a lot of things there, as well as touching on he's decided to release 2 books in a month. So I think Luke's just showing off because he's done a book about werewolves and things, but also the new book features a prelude to Rogue.
Ooh,
as part
very
of one
exciting.
Of the stories. So yes, all things monstrous and strange.
Very cool. And where can everyone find you online?
You can find Mysteries and Monsters lurking across most social media networks and podcast sites.
Fabulous. I'm Largely the Truth on Threads, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Letterboxd. You can find my horror fiction show Fear Daily everywhere fine podcasts live. Co-authored with Brandon Scheck-Snyder, and actually the novella that I wrote for Fear Daily, which it was recorded but never produced and released, is going to start being released on the Fear Daily feed very soon. Brandon was able to, he went back to it and wanted to finish it up. So I'm very excited. I think it's going to be 5 or 6 parts that'll be coming out here in the coming weeks. I'm very excited for that one to finally be heard. So again, that's Fear Daily everywhere you get your podcasts. And of course, you can find me reading audiobooks over on Audible. And my personal website, largelythetruth.com. As we said at the top of the show, none of this happens without our patrons. Without you, we would be hooped. And of course, we offer a number of tiers, all of which include early ad-free release, or all of which include ad-free release. Some of them are early, some are not. But there are also bonus conversations between myself and Paul, episodes of shows like Host Adventures, our monthly live stream, our Ghost Force shoutouts, and so much more. You can get all of that by clicking the link in the show notes, heading to patreon.com/ghoststoryguys, becoming a Cabinista on Apple Podcasts, or subscribing on YouTube. Again, for bonus shows, early ad-free release, and lots of other cool stuff, click the link in the show notes, head to patreon.com/ghoststoryguys, become a Cabinista on Apple Podcasts, or sign up on YouTube. If you want some Ghost Story Guys merch, you can head to our website at ghoststoryguys.com. There you'll find all kinds of cool stuff. We have stickers, t-shirts, mugs, and of course you'll also find a blog which has show notes for all of these episodes and also includes a fairly comprehensive listing of all of our appearances on other shows. So if you want to hear me and Paul on both together and separately on other shows, find them all linked at ghoststoryguys.com. Our theme song, Radio, Into the Darkness We Go, is composed and performed by Peter Kursov of Pizzanta Music. Find more from him by searching for Pizzanta Music wherever you get your tunes. And I think that's going to do it.
We'll be back next week, but until then,
Into the darkness we go.
some of us have watched this film before in a different title, I think.
I didn't even like it that much back then.
No, not really, no.
And I only know that because I read it on Wikipedia after watching it. Because the screening I went to, the video just crapped out at about the 2/3 mark. The rest of it was just radio. And no one cared enough to go downstairs to fix it. Like, the staff didn't know. Everyone was like, well, I guess we're here. I think it was just me and a couple people getting hand jobs in the back. So no one was really concerned about fixing the image. I just thought, well, I'm going to let these people do what they're doing. I hear them dropping keys into a cauldron. I'm just going to take off.